Under the blazing sun of North Africa, a vast, endless desert stretches out, punctuated by the single blessing that separates life from nothingness, the Nile River. For other civilizations, a river was merely a source of water. For the ancient Egyptians, the Nile was the heart, the lifeblood, and the soul of their entire existence. Every year, as if by magic, the river would overflow, covering the surrounding land with rich, fertile black silt, creating an oasis of life in the middle of an ocean of sand. Upon this blessed ground, a magnificent civilization was born, one that would endure for thousands of years and leave a legacy that continues to inspire the world to this day. Their story began over 5,000 years ago, not with a great battle, but with a profound unification. Initially, Egypt was divided into two distinct cultural and political kingdoms: Upper Egypt in the south, with its capital at Nekhen, Hierakonpolis, and symbolized by the white crown, and Lower Egypt in the north, with its capital at Buto, and marked by the red crown. The two regions, though separate, were intrinsically linked by the same river, as if destiny had intended for them to be one. Around 3100 BCE, a charismatic leader from Upper Egypt named King Menes, believed by some historians to be the same figure as King Narmer, launched a military campaign to conquer the north. But this was more than a mere conquest. It was the unification of two worlds. His victory was symbolized by the wearing of the double crown, which combined the white and red crowns representing the unification of the two lands. This unification was the beginning of a long and glorious era, marking the founding of a civilization that would come to dominate the ancient world. The center of their power was the new capital city of Memphis, strategically located at the meeting point of the two kingdoms. From here, the first pharaoh and his successors built a highly organized system of government. They were not ordinary kings, but were believed to be living gods, intermediaries between humankind and the divine world. Every aspect of their lives, from agriculture to architecture, was governed by this deep-seated belief. Life in ancient Egypt was a dance with the rhythm of nature, an absolute devotion to the Nile's annual cycle. They did not fight the floods, they celebrated them, for the flood was the promise of a bountiful harvest and unimaginable wealth. They divided the year into 3 seasons based on the river's cycle: Akhet, the season of the flood; Pere, the season of growth and planting; and Shemu, the season of harvest. This intimate knowledge allowed them to develop an incredibly efficient agricultural system. When the flood waters receded, leaving behind a layer of nutrient-rich black silt, they simply had to sow their seeds. The miracle of this black land, Kemet, was the foundation that supported a large population and allowed for the specialization of labor. In stark contrast to the red land, Deshret, the desolate desert that surrounded them, which served as a natural shield from invaders. From this system, a society of scribes, engineers, artisans, and architects would emerge, ready to build the greatest monuments in history. The need to manage the floods and the complex irrigation systems pushed them to develop a sophisticated bureaucracy. Scribes, who were the highest class of the educated elite, meticulously recorded the river levels, harvests, and taxes. From this practical need, hieroglyphs were born, a system of writing so beautiful and complex that they believed it to be the words of the gods. Hieroglyphs were carved into monuments and written on papyrus, recording their history, prayers, and daily transactions. The development of this writing system was a fundamental breakthrough that allowed for the transmission of knowledge, laws, and stories from one generation to the next. The belief in the afterlife and the divine status of the pharaoh was the driving force behind all of ancient Egypt's achievements. They believed that the pharaoh, upon death, would ascend to the heavens and be reunited with the sun god, Ra. To ensure this journey was successful, their bodies had to be protected and provided with everything they would need for the next life. This belief gave rise to intricate burial practices, including mummification and the construction of elaborate tombs. The earliest tombs, known as mastabas, were simple rectangular structures made of mud brick. But the spiritual ambitions of the pharaohs grew, and they wanted to build something grander, something that would last forever, a stairway to the sky that would guarantee their immortality. Ancient Egypt was not a historical accident. They were the result of an intelligent adaptation to a unique environment. From sand and silt, they created incredible wealth. From their devotion to their gods, They built a civilization with a solid hierarchy, and from their belief in the afterlife, they would soon embark on building projects that are unmatched on Earth, a testament to their unwavering power and faith. Their genius in managing nature, their loyalty to a divine pharaoh, and their love of immortality would soon lead them into an era that would be forever known as the Age of the Pyramids. After the founding of the unified kingdom, Egypt entered an era that would define it in the eyes of the world. The Old Kingdom, c. 2686 to 181 BCE, a period characterized by unparalleled architectural ambition and a deep-seated belief in the divine status of the pharaoh. This era was not about territorial expansion, but about building for eternity. The pharaohs, who were believed to be intermediaries between heaven and earth, did not just rule their people. They guided an entire civilization toward immortality. After their death, their soul would embark on a journey to be reunited with the sun god Ra. To ensure this journey was successful, they required a monumental tomb, a portal to the afterlife and a monument to their limitless power. This golden age did not begin with a colossal pyramid, but with a revolutionary experiment. The first pharaoh to embody this ambition was Djoser, c. 2630 BCE. Under the guidance of his genius architect Imhotep, Djoser built the step pyramid at Saqqara, considered the world's first large-scale stone building. This pyramid was not a true pyramid, but a series of stacked mastabas, flat-top tombs, creating a giant staircase that was believed the pharaoh would use to ascend to the heavens. This innovation was a quantum leap from the mud brick tombs that came before, a tangible testament to Egypt's burgeoning understanding of engineering and symbolism. But the quest for the perfect form had just begun. The pinnacle came during the 4th dynasty. Pharaoh Sneferu, an ambitious and innovative leader, attempted to perfect the pyramid shape. His efforts are a story of trial and error. He built 3 great pyramids. The first, the Maiden Pyramid, started with a step design but eventually collapsed, teaching his architects invaluable lessons about angles and stability. His second attempt, the Bent Pyramid, began with a steep angle, but halfway through his engineers realized the structure was unstable and had to dramatically reduce the incline, creating a uniquely awkward shape. Finally, with all the knowledge gained from his previous failures, Sneferu built the Red Pyramid, the very first true, smooth-sided pyramid with a stable angle. Sneferu's perseverance paved the way for future generations. All of this experience culminated in the creation of a wonder of the ancient world. Pharaoh Khufu, Sneferu's son, built the Great Pyramid of Giza, a structure so magnificent that it remained the tallest man-made building for over 3,800 years. It was constructed from millions of stone blocks, each weighing 2.5 tons, quarried with incredible precision and transported from miles away. How they accomplished this without modern technology remains a mystery that fascinates historians and archaeologists. The Great Pyramid was not just a pile of stones. It was a precise cosmogram, aligned perfectly with true north in line with the stars, and representing the primordial mound from which life first emerged. The Giza building project didn't stop there. Khufu's Great Pyramid was followed by his son Khafre, who built a slightly smaller pyramid that appears larger due to its construction on higher ground. Alongside his pyramid, Khafre also commissioned the mysterious Great Sphinx, a colossal statue with the body of a lion and the head of a man, believed to be a portrait of the pharaoh himself. The Sphinx, seemingly guarding the entire funerary complex, stood as a symbol of power and eternity. Finally, Khafre's son, Menkaure, completed the Giza complex with his own pyramid, which, though smaller, showed the same incredible craftsmanship. The construction of these colossal monuments is often misunderstood. They were not built by slaves. Instead, they were the result of a massive, well-organized public works project involving tens of thousands of skilled laborers who were paid, fed, and housed. These workers, from farmers who worked during the flood season to stonemasons and engineers, were incredibly well-organized. Ancient records show they were given bread, beer, and meat, and they lived in well-planned villages. The logistics required to move, shape, and place millions of tons of stone was a marvel of management, demonstrating an extraordinary level of social and economic organization. The Age of the Pyramids is a tangible testament to a rigid hierarchy with the pharaoh at the top, followed by his ministers, scribes, priests, and skilled craftsmen. They all worked together toward one goal: to ensure the spiritual safety of their pharaoh. They believed that by ensuring their pharaoh's successful journey to the afterlife, they would also secure the stability and continued survival of all of Egypt. This collective devotion to a single belief was the driving force behind this incredible building spree. However, this devotion was also the beginning of their undoing. The construction of these colossal monuments came at an immense cost, draining the royal treasury and human resources. The power of the pharaoh gradually weakened while the influence of regional nobles, nomarchs, and the priests of Amun began to grow. Eventually, economic strain and political infighting shattered the kingdom's unity, ending the Old Kingdom and plunging Egypt into an era of chaos. Despite this, their legacy stands firm, a silent testament to the magnificent age of the pyramids. The golden age of the pyramids did not last forever. After the Old Kingdom reached its monumental peak, its centralized power began to crumble. The immense cost of pyramid building, coupled with famines and droughts caused by an unstable Nile flood, plunged Egypt into an era of chaos. This period, known as the First Intermediate Period, c. 2181-2055 BCE, was one of the darkest times in Egyptian history. The power of the pharaoh waned to almost nothing. Regional rulers, known as nomarchs, governed their own territories with complete autonomy. Egypt fractured into a multitude of small, warring kingdoms, abandoning the unity that Menes had so carefully forged. Anarchy and suffering spread across the land, and even art and architecture showed signs of decline. But just as every flood cycle inevitably returns, the Egyptian civilization showed incredible resilience. From the darkness and division, a new power emerged from the southern city of Thebes, modern-day Luxor, which had been spared the chaos of the north. A brave prince named Mentuhotep II began a long and difficult military campaign to reunite Egypt. He did not just fight the nomarchs of the north, he had to restore a shattered social order. After decades of battle, around 2055 BCE, he finally succeeded in reuniting the two crowns. This victory was an epic of determination and leadership, marking the beginning of the Middle Kingdom, c. 2055-1650 BCE. This era brought about a fundamental change in the way Egypt was ruled. The new pharaohs were no longer seen simply as distant, unreachable gods, as they were in the Old Kingdom. Instead, they were portrayed as responsible leaders and protectors of their people. The art and literature from this period reflected this shift. Portraits of the pharaohs show them with more realistic, serious facial features, showing the burden of responsibility on their shoulders rather than just their divinity. The focus of power shifted from building colossal tombs to more practical, public welfare-oriented projects, such as extensive irrigation canals to control the floods and expand farmland, as well as robust fortresses to protect the borders. The Middle Kingdom was a golden age of literature and art. Scribes and artists produced works filled with emotion, reflection, and complexity, a stark contrast to the rigid, formal style of the Old Kingdom. Stories like the story of Sinuhe tell the tale of a nobleman who flees Egypt and struggles to return, offering a deep look into human identity, patriotism, and struggle. The tale of the shipwrecked sailor was an adventure that featured themes of courage, destiny, and isolation. This new body of literature didn't just tell stories of kings and gods, but also of ordinary people and their struggles, creating a cultural legacy that was rich and profound. While more focused on internal matters, Egypt also extended its influence outward. Capable pharaohs like Senusret III led successful military campaigns into Nubia in the south. They not only secured vital gold mines, which became a source of Egypt's wealth for centuries, but also built a series of impenetrable fortresses to secure the territory. This was an era where Egypt projected its power not just through monuments, but also through an organized military force. They also strengthened trade relations with the Levant and Crete, paving the way for greater cultural and economic exchange. This restored stability and prosperity created an illusion of permanence. The pharaohs built smaller pyramids made of mud brick and more secretive underground tombs to protect themselves from tomb robbers. However, beneath the surface, problems began to arise. The royal bloodline weakened, and there was a series of less than capable rulers. At the same time, Egypt faced a steady wave of migration from Western Asian peoples, particularly from a group known as the Hyksos, who slowly settled in the Nile Delta. Ultimately, this internal weakness and external pressure triggered a new crisis. Power fragmented once again, and Egypt was divided into three competing forces: the Hyksos dynasty in the north, the rulers of Thebes in the middle, and the Nubian leaders in the south. This foreign takeover was the greatest humiliation for Egypt, a proud civilization that had long dominated its region. It marked the end of the Middle Kingdom and the beginning of the Second Intermediate Period, a new age of invasion and threat they had never faced before, but one that would also spark their most glorious revival. After the fall of the Middle Kingdom, Egypt entered the most humiliating and dangerous period in its history. This was the Second Intermediate Period, c. 1650–1550 BCE, an era dominated by foreign rule. A people from the Levant known as the Hyksos, a name that meant rulers of foreign lands, managed to breach Egypt's defenses and conquer most of Lower Egypt. They brought with them vastly superior military technology, such as the fast and deadly chariot and the powerful composite bow. For the Egyptians, who were used to fighting with simple axes and bows, this technology was unmatched. For almost a century, the Egyptian pharaohs were forced to pay tribute to these foreign rulers, an unthinkable humiliation for a proud civilization. But the spirit of resistance never died. In the southern city of Thebes, which remained independent, Egyptian princes secretly planned a rebellion. The epic story of their struggle began with Seqenenre-Tao II, who fell in battle. His son Kamosi continued the fight, leading a successful military campaign against the Hyksos. But the true victory came with the rise of his younger brother Amosi-Ophir, c. 1550 BCE. He led the Theban forces in a grueling, multi-year war of attrition, finally managing to drive the Hyksos out of Egypt and chase them back to their fortresses in the Levant. Amos-Ophir's victory not only restored Egypt's sovereignty, but also fundamentally changed their view of the world. They realized that to survive, they could no longer be isolated and peaceful. They had to become a dominant military power. This victory marked the beginning of the New Kingdom, c. 1550–1070 BCE, an era that would be the peak of Egypt's power, wealth, and military expansion. This transformation began with the military. The Egyptians quickly adopted the very Hyksos technology that had conquered them. They perfected the use of the chariot, making it the most feared combat unit in the ancient world. The Egyptian army was no longer a seasonal militia, but a highly trained professional force consisting of infantry, archers, and deadly chariot units. With this army, the new pharaohs embarked on ambitious military campaigns to forge an empire. Among these great pharaohs was Thutmose I, who led campaigns deep into Nubia in the south, securing vital gold mines, and into the Levant in the east. Then came one of the most fascinating and unexpected pharaohs in history, Hatshepsut. Although a woman, she ruled with full authority and genius. She chose a path not of war to build her empire, but of trade and diplomacy. She led a famous trading expedition to the mythical land of Punt, bringing back incredible wealth in myrrh, frankincense, ivory, and gold. Her peaceful reign was marked by massive building projects, including her beautiful and daring mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahari. However, after her death, the succession returned to the military path. Her stepson, Thutmose III, who had been held back by Hatshepsut, took the throne and led Egypt to the pinnacle of its military glory. He was nicknamed the Napoleon of Egypt for his unparalleled tactical and strategic genius. He led over a dozen successful military campaigns, most famously the Battle of Megiddo, where he surprised his enemies by taking a difficult but faster route. He cemented Egypt's name as an invincible force, expanding the empire all the way to the Euphrates River in the east. With the immense wealth from conquest and trade, the New Kingdom pharaohs embarked on an unparalleled building spree. They abandoned the conspicuous pyramids and instead chose hidden, underground tombs in the Valley of the Kings to protect their bodies and treasures from robbers. Though hidden, these tombs were elaborately decorated, filled with religious texts from the Book of the Dead, which were believed to help the pharaoh on their journey to the afterlife. At the same time, they built colossal temple complexes at Karnak and Luxor to honor the gods, especially the state god Amun. These temples were so massive they took centuries to build and expand. They were a visible testament to the power of the pharaohs and the priests of Amun, whose authority grew alongside Egypt's wealth and splendor. But in the midst of all this glory and luxury, the seeds of conflict had already begun to sprout. a battle for power that would soon erupt and shake the Egyptian civilization to its core. At the very peak of the New Kingdom's glory, an unprecedented event occurred that would shake Egyptian civilization to its core. In the midst of deeply rooted traditions and beliefs that had endured for thousands of years, a new pharaoh named Amenhotep IV ascended the throne. But he was unlike any pharaoh before him. He was a visionary, an idealist who believed that the entire religious order of Egypt was a lie. This is the climax of ancient Egyptian history. In a bold and unheard-of act, Amenhotep IV rejected the entire pantheon of Egyptian gods and recognized only one true deity, Ten, the sun disk god. He changed his name to Akhenaten, meaning servant of Aten, and began a radical revolution. Akhenaten closed the temples of the other gods, including the powerful temples of the state god, Amun. He moved the capital from Thebes to a brand new city he had built in the desert, which he named Akhetaten, now known as Amarna, the horizon of Aten. There, he and his beautiful queen, Nefertiti, led a new cult focused on a direct personal relationship with Aten. Under his rule, Egyptian art also underwent a revolution, becoming more realistic and expressive, a stark departure from the rigid, formal style of the past. Images of Akhenaten and his family showed them in intimate and private poses, something that was unimaginable before. But this revolution had a devastating impact. The priests of Amun, who had lost their immense power and wealth, secretly opposed him. The Egyptian people, accustomed to their diverse gods, felt scared and confused. The social and religious order that had sustained their civilization for millennia crumbled in a short period. Akhenaten was so obsessed with his new religion that he neglected political and military matters, causing Egypt to lose its influence and territory abroad. After Akhenaten's death, his reign quickly unraveled. His successor, a young boy named Tutankhaten, immediately returned the capital to Thebes and changed his name to Tutankhamun to honor the god Amun. He destroyed the statues of Aten and restored all the temples to their original status. The Amarna period was considered a disgrace and was purged from historical records. Akhenaten's name was erased from monuments and he was largely forgotten until the discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb in the modern era. However, Egypt did not return to its full glory so easily. After Tutankhamun's brief reign, a powerful general named Horemheb seized power, followed by a new dynasty. The climax of this post-Amarna era came with the reign of Ramesses II, who ruled for over 60 years. Ramesses II was a warrior pharaoh who restored Egypt's power and built unmatched monuments, like the temples of Abu Simbel. He was the most heavily documented pharaoh in history, bringing an end to this period of chaos and returning Egypt to its military and cultural glory, though it would never fully recover from the traumatic effects of Akhenaten's reforms. Although Ramesses II successfully restored Egypt to its peak power, this glory did not last forever. After his death, the ancient Egyptian civilization entered a long and painful era of decline, a slow and drawn-out end after more than 1,500 years of dominance. This period was marked by unrelenting external pressure and internal fragmentation that could not be stopped. The greatest threat came from a mysterious group known as the Sea Peoples. These were raiders from the Mediterranean who attacked territories throughout the Near East, causing the collapse of many powerful kingdoms. Although Egypt, under pharaohs like Ramesses III, managed to repel them, these battles were incredibly exhausting and drained Egypt's military and economic resources. These invasions not only weakened Egypt militarily, but also disrupted vital trade routes and triggered widespread social chaos. After the New Kingdom came to an end, Egypt entered the Third Intermediate Period, c. 1070–664 BCE. The power of the pharaoh waned and Egypt fragmented into several competing dynasties. Most of the power resided in the hands of the high priests in Thebes and local rulers in the Delta. This chaos made Egypt vulnerable to foreign invasions, a vulnerability it had not faced in a millennium. During the late period, c. 664–332 BCE, Egypt became the target of ambitious empires from the east. First, the Nubians from the south successfully conquered Egypt and ruled as pharaohs, bringing their own traditions to the Nile Valley. They were followed by the Assyrians, who conquered Egypt with brutal military force. Finally, the vast Persian Empire took control of Egypt for almost 2 centuries, effectively ending Egypt's long-held sovereignty. Although Egypt experienced brief periods of independence, such as under the 26th dynasty, it never truly returned to its former glory. It was forced to adapt to the cultures and rules of its conquerors. The last monuments were built in a simpler style, and traditional beliefs began to blend with foreign ones. The civilization that had once stood tall at the pinnacle of the world was now staggering, a mere shadow of its glorious past. The story of ancient Egypt does not end with a single battle or a dramatic collapse, but with a slow and inevitable finale. Those who were once so powerful became easy prey for younger, more ambitious empires. Their demise was not an instant tragedy, but a long, extended epilogue. The end was not a sudden bang, but a fading whisper as the world moved on and left the old gods behind. After centuries of being a province for various foreign empires, ancient Egypt met its final destiny at the hands of one of the most famous conquerors in history, Alexander the Great. In 332 BCE, Alexander arrived in Egypt, freed them from Persian rule, and was welcomed as a savior. He founded the magnificent city of Alexandria and established the last dynasty that would ever rule Egypt, the Ptolemaic dynasty. Although the Ptolemaic rulers were of Greek descent, they cleverly adopted the traditions and titles of the pharaohs, ruling as the ancient Egyptian kings did. But beneath the surface, Egyptian culture began to blend with Greek culture. The peak of the Ptolemaic dynasty was its most famous queen, Cleopatra VII. She was the last true pharaoh to hold power, a woman who was intelligent, charismatic, and ambitious. She spoke multiple languages, including Egyptian, a rarity for her dynasty. Her story is a dramatic mix of love, betrayal, and political maneuvering with two of Rome's most powerful figures, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. She was a true monarch of the old world, a final attempt to secure Egypt's place on the world stage. But even her great ambition was not enough to stop the inevitable force, the Roman Republic. Ultimately, after a decisive battle and Cleopatra's suicide, Egypt became a Roman province in 30 BCE. The final curtain was drawn on one of the longest and most astonishing dramas in all of history. The civilization that was born from the Nile thousands of years before had finally come to an end. But did it really end? Although the political power of ancient Egypt vanished, its legacy never died. Its greatest inheritance wasn't the pyramids, the temples, or the buried treasures. It was the ideas they left behind. The science of ancient Egypt became a foundation for many modern disciplines. Their knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and medicine was incredibly advanced for their time. They were one of the first to develop a calendar, which became the basis for our calendar today. Their understanding of mummification and human anatomy provided a basis for modern medicine. They conducted complex surgeries and wrote medical texts that were studied for centuries. Their art and architecture continue to mesmerize and inspire. The pyramids and their temples still stand as a testament to their engineering genius and unwavering spiritual belief. Their hieroglyphs, though no longer in use, sparked a relentless obsession that eventually allowed us to unlock the secrets of their past. From the majestic columns of Karnak to the intricate paintings inside the tombs, their artistic expression speaks to a profound respect for order and the divine. The story of the ancient Egyptian civilization is an epic of resilience and innovation. They faced internal division, foreign invasions, and drastic changes, yet they always rose again, rebuilt, and pushed forward. They endured for over 3,000 years, far longer than any modern empire. Their end was not a failure, but the conclusion of a drama that had reached its inevitable, drawn-out finale. Do you want to dive into more incredible stories of lost civilizations, forgotten heroes, and hidden secrets? Subscribe to continue the saga.